At the Russia Energy Week Forum in Moscow, Vladimir Putin turned an industry forum into a full-fledged geopolitical counteroffensive. He accused Western elites of waging an energy crusade against Russia, a campaign that, he said, is tearing Europe apart and forcing the world into a new energy order. The speech came as US President Donald Trump warned nations to reconsider overdependence on Russian oil, signaling a possible escalation in the coming months.
During my speech, I will touch on some key trends in modern energy. And of course, I will present our perspective on the challenges facing the global and Russian energy sectors. The first such challenge is the reconfiguration of global energy connections. This process is largely objective and natural. New centers of economic development are emerging, and consumption is growing there. That's all there is to it. However, we are also facing an artificial disruption of the energy architecture caused by aggressive and quite assertive actions by certain Western elites.
Putin blames the West's energy war. Putin accused the West of engineering an energy shock in retaliation for Russia's war in Ukraine. He said, Europe's refusal to buy Russian energy, driven by political pressure, has crippled its own economy. With Trump back in the White House, Putin's remarks are a message. Washington's pressure is deepening divisions inside the West itself.
As you know, many European countries, for example, under political pressure, have refused to purchase Russian energy resources. I have already noted what such a refusal leads to for these Western states and their economic and industrial potential. We are witnessing the consequences of these actions in the European Union, including a decline in industrial output, rising prices due to more expensive transatlantic oil and gas, and a reduction in the competitiveness of European goods and economies as a whole. According to Eurostat, industrial production in the Eurozone in July of this year was 1.2% lower than in 2021. The decline in industrial production continues in Germany, the so-called locomotive of the European economy, with a 6.6% drop in July compared to the average level of 2021.
Putin hit back at what he called Europe's energy self-destruction. He referenced the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage, calling it the moment Europe cut itself off from its most stable source of energy. He said Moscow's exports may have dropped initially but are now rebounding, thanks to new partners across Asia and the global South.
It might seem that the refusal of some European countries to buy Russian gas and the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines cut us off from traditional markets and dealt a blow to an important sector of our energy industry. And we must admit that our gas exports did initially decline, but they have since started to grow again. They haven't fully recovered yet, but the growth is absolutely clear. The EU's actions have only accelerated the shift in our supply direction toward more promising and responsible buyers, countries that understand their interests and act rationally based on those national interests. Our gas companies ensure reliable supplies to these markets, as we have always done in all directions. Together with our partners, we are working to increase the export potential of Russia's gas industry. This includes not only pipeline gas, but also LNG supplies. At the same time, we are increasing domestic consumption, which is extremely important, including at gas chemical enterprises being built in the Volga region, Siberia, and Russia's Far East.
Putin declared that Asia, Africa, and Latin America are now the pillars of Russia's energy future. As Trump warns allies about over-reliance on Moscow, Putin made clear that Russia no longer needs Europe, that its pipelines and tankers have already turned east.
We are increasing the supply of blue fuel to our cities and towns. Over the past 5 years alone, about 100,000 kilometers of gas distribution networks have been laid. As a result, the gasification level in Russia is approaching 75% and will undoubtedly continue to grow. To be more precise, it's 74.7%, with an increase of 6.1 percentage points since 2019. The social gasification program continues. Over 4 years, nearly 1 million households in Russia have gained access to pipeline gas. We expect this number to grow by another 2 million in the future.
Putin accused Western firms of cutting off their own lifeline by abandoning Russia. He said Russia's engineers have already overtaken Western rivals, replacing sanctioned equipment with domestic technology and exporting it worldwide.
We've seen how Western elites abruptly refused to service equipment for the energy sector supplied to Russia. They officially stated they would not fulfill their obligations. This only further demonstrated that they are unreliable partners, and their actions are directly tied to political motives, sometimes used for unfair competition. It's clear that, to be honest, Western commercial entities were forced to act this way under pressure from their ruling political elites. But the fact remains, Western equipment technologies for the fuel and energy sector can become unavailable at any moment for geopolitical reasons, not only for Russia, but for any other energy supplier that someone in the West deems an inconvenient competitor or simply an uncooperative country. Those partners are forced to cut staff. Their main market was ours, where they sold their high-tech products. They were forced to abandon it. Their production is becoming unprofitable, they're reducing their workforce, and they're losing their technologies. Meanwhile, our specialists are advancing, becoming technological leaders because our domestic market allows them to produce at a profitable level. And partners worldwide are now increasingly buying this equipment from Russian companies. Yesterday they bought from Europe. Today, more and more from us. And this process will continue to develop.
Putin turned to Russia's nuclear power strategy, calling it the cornerstone of the future global balance. While Trump warns that BRICS' growing energy bloc threatens Western leverage, Putin says Moscow is already shaping that future.
Rosatom accounts for about 90% of the global market for nuclear power plant construction. A total of 110 power units of Russian design have been built worldwide. Russia is the only country in the world with expertise across the entire nuclear energy chain. When building abroad, we don't just construct facilities but, together with our partners, create the future of the energy sector and related industries, forming a strong national cadre, scientific and technological foundation for the development of entire countries. On this basis, we are building nuclear power plants in Egypt, Bangladesh, and Turkey, and intend to deepen cooperation in the nuclear sector with global South countries through BRICS. We are already actively working in this area. Experts believe that nuclear energy will become one of the cornerstones of the future global energy balance. By 2050, the capacity of global nuclear power plants is expected to nearly double. In Russia, over the next decade and a half, we plan to commission more than 29 gigawatts of nuclear power plant capacity, including small nuclear power plants. And so far, no one else in the world is building small nuclear power plants except us. There are plans, but in practice, nothing is happening globally. Only we are doing it.
Putin said, the world is entering an era of energy realism, one that values stability and sovereignty over ideology. While President Trump urges allies to diversify from Russian oil, Putin positioned Russia as the anchor of predictability in a chaotic world.
In business and expert circles, there's growing talk that the world is entering an era of energy realism. The reckless, I would say irresponsible steps of some Western elites have led to the fact that access to fuel and energy, the availability of networks and pipelines, and the installed capacity of energy systems are becoming increasingly significant, overshadowing energy transition parameters or comparisons of emissions from different fuel types. In these conditions, it's especially important to effectively manage resource extraction and reserves, ensure the technological and environmental development of the industry to supply the domestic market, achieve national development goals, and fulfill external agreements. We have always done this, are doing it now, and will undoubtedly continue to do so.
Putin's closing message was calm but unmistakably defiant. He said Russia will remain a global energy power, unshaken by Western pressure or ideological wars. As Trump recalibrates America's policy on oil and BRICS, Moscow is signaling it's ready for both energy competition and global confrontation.